All right, the light is green, the trap is clean, we should be live. So hello and welcome to the RPG Academy podcast Twitch stream. My name is Michael, and we are here tonight for a Detention live with special guest host Andrew and special guest co-host Ryan. Everyone wave it to the screen and to the people who are there, maybe not there. If you're first time to Detention, this is more of our somewhat after dark, talk showy type podcast. We have some segments, we have some bits that we do, but ideally at some point we'll say something that might be relevant to you and your table that you can take back to your games and make your games more fun, but I'm not going to promise that. Welcome, Foxblade. Happy to have you with us. And Andrew, we'll start with you. Extracurricular, what you been up to, buddy? What do you want to talk about?
Great, yeah. What have I been up to? I've been playing a lot of old NES games on the Switch.
Too.
I know. And I've been playing them on the Switch. If you have the online, you just get like access to a bunch of NES and Super NES games. So I have not been playing the classics as you have been doing regularly. I've been playing really obscure, weird games I've never heard of or played before. Primarily at the moment, Vice: Project Doom.
Okay.
Which, I never heard of it either, but it reminds me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game with the very bad underwater level.
Oh yeah, that was awful.
Right.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's the exact same kind of game, and I wonder which of them came first, because they definitely have like stolen aspects from another. I mean, they're both stealing from like Castlevania a little bit, but yeah, I'm playing really bad old NES games. I recommend Vice Project Doom. It's bad but fun to be good at.
All right, fair enough. Anything else going on?
I mean, I could talk about anything all day long. Let's see. We've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing. Which one? Paper Mario, the Origami King. Yes, thank you. Off-screen wife. Yeah, it's good. It's really strange. Not like the last one I played was one for the GameCube, Thousand Year Door, which is a masterpiece. So we just we've been watching Big Bang Theory, not really watching it, just kind of having it on. So I don't generally like it, but it's the stuff that I like, oh yeah, that was actually a really good bit. That's a fun reference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to just kind of have on for background radiation.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And just in case someone isn't familiar with you, you've been part of the Academy for a while, not active in a lot of ways, but you've done some very fundamental things like our Trial of Wushu. But where could people find you on the internet if they want to check out some of your other stuff?
Yeah, I guess I should say I am Andrew Young. I'm on Twitter at that1gm. I mostly just retweet stuff, but I also have an itch.io page, such as that1gm.itch.io. I've got a bunch of free games, a couple you can pay for, but like For Sherlock Holmes and a Vampire, you might have heard of, or Laser Space: The Final Chapter, which is a Star Wars, make your own Star Wars game. Your Expletive Deleted Ex-Boyfriend, which is a super combat heavy game about the punk band just beating up a bunch of dudes across town. A bunch of others. There's a Scooby-Doo knockoff. There's a Cosmic Horror knockoff. There's a Homeward Bound style game. So just a bunch of just little silly micro RPGs.
All right.
So yeah, that's me, my whole shtick.
I think we have links disabled, but if you want to throw your link in there and then just don't like put the dot in parentheses, that way if somebody wants to like copy and paste it and go there, they can. Before we go to Ryan, I want to welcome New York Tater. He's one of our longtime followers, friends, also patrons, and Detention is kind of one of his favorites. And I'll be perfectly honest, one of the bigger reasons we started doing this again is because he kept bugging me about when it was coming back. So you're welcome. So Ryan, tell us about what's going on with you, buddy.
Yes.
Extracurricular, man.
Oh man, a whole lot of adulting. So the fun end of things, but I guess, I don't know. I was telling you guys before we started, we got a pool, so I'm dealing with getting that done. All the pools around our area due to, not fun life. are shut down. So we've got our own, or we'll have it soon. Trying to get that settled. As far as gaming and stuff, we played a few sessions of Dragonfire on Tabletop Simulator, which is great. I enjoy that. My wife and I just finished binging the Netflix series Queen of the South, which I wasn't expecting to like that as much. I don't get into like, I'm more of a fantasy guy. This is violence, drug cartel kind of thing, and a woman like learning the ropes and taking control, which was actually pretty. It was different, so it was pretty cool, I guess, in my mind. Waiting on a 5th season. What else have we finished lately? We finished The Last Kingdom, which was really good. Waiting on that, and I just watched the first episode of Cursed on Netflix. I don't know. First episode, not bad. It's got a good tease to it, so we'll see if that's good. Other than that, playing games with my kids. They're doing a lot of Minecraft. I don't know. They got back into a Minecraft binge, so they've been doing that. And then I just got my D&D Theros book in the mail today, so I'm excited for that. So I'll be digging into that shortly.
Yeah.
Yes, that beauty.
So again, most people hopefully know what I've been up to because I tell them all the time on Twitter. But I've been replaying some classic Nintendo games as well on the Twitch every Monday through Friday. The time has fluctuated a little bit, but I try to do it around 11 each day. Today, the internet did not work for me, but I finished Final Fantasy. That took like 21 sessions. Legend of Zelda took me 10. And then I just started Metroid, did the 3rd session today, which again, didn't really stream because it was, the internet sucked. But it's going rough. Like I died, not even kidding, like 12 times in a row. So it's fun, but it's also very frustrating. It's like it's a game that reminds me. I used to throw controllers. I do not do that now. I've aged past that, but sometimes I get close even now because it's just that game is so frustrating. But Ryan mentioned it, yeah. But Tabletop Simulator, that's probably the big thing I would want to talk about this week. Is I got it like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago just to sort of try it out. One of our other faculty members, Michael Verjager, one on Twitter, he plays on there a lot. And it just sort of just sat on Steam. I didn't really use it. We tried to play Zombicide once, and it was very fiddly, and I didn't really like it. And then someone told me that Dragonfire was on there as a workshop. And I don't know anything about Steam. I don't know anything about Tabletop Simulator. So I apologize if I am promoting piracy. But it's free if you have Tabletop Simulator.
And it's really fun.
It's really fun. Now, I own literally everything for Dragonfire because I'm OCD and I have all my cards and they're labeled and they're in color-coded sleeves. So I feel okay that I'm using this free version because I have already given the money to the company. But there's a whole bunch of games that are on there that are free to play through the workshop. And I found that Marvel Legendary, which is like one of my absolute favorite games that I love to play. And I love to play it just solo. And it's easier to play online because when you're done, you don't have to put your cards up. So I've been playing that a ton. And then Chris from Redemption, he really likes that game. So he and I played that like 5 times in like the last 3 or 4 days. And we had somebody join the Discord and we taught them how to play. So yeah, I've been just like all in on TTS. We even have a channel now on Discord that's just for organizing TTS games. And then Friday, I'm supposed to play Eldritch Horror with Michael because that's like his favorite game of all time. And I'm looking forward to that as well. So TTS, jump on our Discord and then jump on TTS and let's play some games and hopefully not do anything illegal. I don't think we are, but I don't know. And then also I've been running a bunch of one-shots for a bunch of other games, Forbidden Lands, Marvel superheroes. Again, I got the Theros book. I was lucky enough I got a review copy. So we're going to be doing a in-depth review of that probably in the next couple weeks, including we're also doing one for Forbidden Lands. We're scheduling that right now as well. But yeah, so there's a lot going on. I'm busier now than I was before I stopped working.
Good news is most of it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's the thing is that it's like the feeling I get is like I was a terrible student in high school. Like I was like a C-, bottom 10% of high school. I'm a smart guy. I just did not like high school. I didn't like being told what to do. I have a problem with authority. And when I went to college and I suddenly had control, like I picked the classes I wanted to go to. I picked when they were. I picked which teachers I wanted. And I was nearly a straight A student in college. I was on the Dean's Row and Honors Roll almost every semester because having the control just worked for me. And that's kind of what I feel like I am now. I still do a lot of stuff, but it's all things I want to do. I'm choosing to do them. I don't get paid for them other than, the little bit we get from Patreon and stuff like that. So it's not really work, but as busy as I am, I enjoy doing all of it and it's all fun. And also I have a Smallville podcast. So if you like Smallville, find that because I also do that, which adds to my stress.
New York Tater, what's this dice bag in chat? So I'm trying to keep up with chat as we go, and I'm jumping back and forth. So Michael, what's the dice bag he's talking about? Do you know anything about that?
I don't remember either, so I'm probably offending him. So I don't know, maybe did you give me a dice bag that I've thrown into my Catacon stuff?
Uh-oh.
Is it a dice bag? Is it a dice bag that New York Tater wants?
Maybe
that they're waiting to get from you to wait for the opportunity to snatch it.
That's what it is. He won a contest, and I owe him a dice bag and a set of dice. But I was supposed to bring it to the faculty retreat, which didn't happen, and I was supposed to bring it to a Catacon, and that's not going to happen either. So I do still owe him a dice bag, a set of dice, and a Cthulhu.
Is this one of our leather-bound Academy stamped ones?
Well, the one he actually won is the Bagthulu one that Wayward Mask put together. She's done a couple of Kickstarters, and she sent us a bunch last year. If you remember, they look like they're called dragon baggins. They kind of look like a dragon, and you open up its head like a Pez dispenser. But I have
not letting you forget this. He's in the chat reminding you of what it was like. The color is coming next.
Oh, he's on it, man.
And happily will. And again, if I need to, I'll mail it to you because again, I thought we were going to have a Catacon. But I'll send you one of our leather ones too because I have a whole box of those still. I'm sitting on those.
I mean, wait time, right? Interest, I guess.
The juice is flowing.
Yes. Excellent. So with that out of the way, we're going to move into our first improv game, and it is 10 Things. And this is a game where we prompt one another to try to come up with 10 things that match our prompt. The importance is immediacy, so it doesn't matter if it's an actual really good example of that. It's just how fast can you get to 10? So Andrew, you're technically our special guest co-host, so you can choose to go first, second, or third. And then, depending on where you go, you can determine who gives you a prompt or who you give the prompt to.
I would like to go second because I don't remember the rules for this, and so I would love someone else to go.
Oh, this is the easier of the two. So
I don't want to go last because I don't want people to end on mine.
All right,
so I should definitely go second.
So I will prompt Ryan first. Ryan will go. Ryan will prompt you. Okay. You will go, and then you can prompt me.
That sounds great.
Okay. So,
we usually try to tool it to what we've been doing or something recent.
Yeah,
but that's how. But it could be completely out of the ordinary too.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but I try to tie it back to something that we've talked about or that kind of thing. New York Tater's like, don't worry, they didn't remember either 2 weeks ago. All right, Ryan. So we talked about what are 10 games that you hope we find on TTS Workbench that we can play for free?
Oh gosh. Let's see here. On the Workbench, that could be anything. All right, ready and Contra.
What's
probably already on there, but there's one. Cards Against Humanity, because that would be great to play with you lunatics.
2.
Let's see here. The X-Men game. We mentioned Ninja Turtles earlier.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Old school. Sorry would be hilarious.
All right.
Let's see here. I'm trying to think. Oh, how goofy would Battleship be?
That'd be fun. You sank my battleship.
King of Tokyo. My kids have been digging that. We love that. I think that.
So I'm at 6, you're at 7. So I don't know what happened there.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I stopped counting.
You got the official count. So 5 Minute Marvel. We play that with the family. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else.
That one is on there, by the way.
Is it really? Okay,
but I have no idea how it would work because TTS is too slow. It'd be like 4-hour Marvel. Anyway, keep going. You got 2 more.
This is not immediate at all.
No.
oh my gosh, something silly like Hearts, which is ridiculous.
Yep. One more.
And my favorite would be I'm trying to think of something co-op-y, and I really can't. Oh my God, Monopoly.
Monopoly, yay!
Yeah, that was the worst 10 things ever.
Those were 10
2 weeks
things.
ago, it was so much better. Yes, it was so much better last week.
All right. So, Ryan,
I either need more beer or not.
You get to prop Andrew for his 10 things.
Faster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, are we taking drinks?
Everybody's taking a drink.
All right.
I did not mention the session that shall not be named, because then we have to take a drink, but that'll probably come up later.
Yeah, probably. All right, let's see here. Andrew. So we were talking earlier about, you mentioned that you haven't played a lot of 5e because we're talking, mentioned the new Theros book. So how about 10 systems or games that you played most recently? Just in general.
Okay, great. Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. I have played. I have played 5th edition. We just never went past level 1, and we stopped paying attention to the rules. So 2. Wushu, obviously, played as often as I possibly can.
3.
Forshaw Comes a Vampire. I've only played that twice. Gosh, I have not played that many games in a long time.
COVID.
Yeah, just role-playing games or any tabletop games?
Anything, yeah.
Great. Okay, I'll start listing off tabletop games now then. Pandemic. It's bad. It's a bad play right now.
5.
Takenoko. Wait, is that the
6.
Panda Bamboo game? Takenoko. King of Tokyo, right? Morel's a co-op mushroom gathering game. Love that one.
8.
Anima, Shadow of Omega, like my favorite card game. And the Firefly board game takes up like 8 cubic yards.
Yeah, 10.
That was 10 things.
10 things.
much quicker than mine.
I had to change categories halfway through though. So, all right, Michael.
Yes, sir.
A lot of movies out there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of movies based on classic board games, though. Battleship, Clue, Dungeons and Dragons. What are 10 board games that you think need to be made into feature-length films? They don't have to be classic, just board games.
Dragonfire. Marvel Legendary, because that's just the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
I could watch a panda eat some bamboo, so Takenoko. I'm trying not to look at my shelf. Scooby-Doo, Betrayal at Mystery Mansion, because I love the idea of Scooby-Doo actually being somewhat serious.
You mean an actual real Scooby-Doo movie? That's good.
Yeah. Pandemic, because why not?
Sure.
I mean, it's right now. It's the time for that. Hanabi, because I want to see how they turn that into a screenplay.
Everyone's blind.
Eldritch Horror, because, we need more Cthulhu mythos in the world. Crud. Okay, I'm going to cheat and look. Ticket to Ride, because it'd be like Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, that movie's so good.
And Spyfall, because that's just a fun game.
One more.
Root, because who doesn't like anthropomorphic animals killing each other?
Hey! That was 10
there are
things.
10 things.
It was 30 things in sets of 10.
Yes. And welcome Tad B91.
That's pretty funny.
I chose to ignore that one. All right, so let's move into sort of the meat and potatoes of this particular show. And it's called Used Books. And the idea here is that one of us, generally it's our guest co-host, will talk about a campaign that they have played in previously in the past, or maybe they ran in the past. And there's something in particular about this campaign that informed future campaigns. Something that went really well that they stole and they used in other games. Something went poorly that they've tried to avoid, or similar. So Andrew, again, you are our guest co-host. So do you have a campaign you'd like to talk about?
I do. It doesn't really have a name. I played it while I worked for ran it rather, where I worked for the Yellow Pages group which is the Canadian Yellow Pages. So all my files are titled YPG RPG. So that's the only name that it has.
Okay.
But okay, so the campaign almost 10 years ago, I ran it.
So what system was it?
This was Dungeons and Dragons 3.5.
Okay.
And we had 4 or 5 players. We did cycle 1 or 2 players in around a couple of times. We had a gentleman who had never played D&D before and did spend a whole evening once arguing that his monk should be able to do multiple attacks after a move, because then he wanted to show me how, like, he's like, look, I can do it. He tried to run. I was like, oh, one of those. So he didn't last super long, but it was a great campaign. It was a lot of fun. We got a conclusion. We did like an epilogue at the end of it. Characters got things they wanted. But I think one of my favorite things about it was I gave out a lot of magic items. I had an NPC, the main quest giver, had just a giant chest full of garbage. And so every time they came to see him after accomplishing something or they needed help, he would just dig into his open his giant chest and just dig around and like throw garbage things out. Of course, I spent the in-between sessions designing these specific magic items for each character. But it was little things, right? So like a quiver it was like a quiver that had like generated 5 wind arrows or something a day. Like, it was just little made up magic items. They weren't even things from the Dungeon Master's Guide or from the big book of treasures. And then a lot of callbacks. I realize a lot of good campaigns have callbacks where you see NPCs recurring multiple times and people get to new situations. But we did a side story once because none of the players, only one player could make it. And I'm like, well, we'll just do a little story with your character, and we won't give them, you won't earn XP. It'll be like a flashback story or something. Mm-hmm. Whatever, let's have fun. And it was just like a dinner party mystery. So there wasn't really even any combat in it, but the villain that I designed for it was really loathsome, very, very rude, very like hateful, very tricky. And he escaped. He was thwarted, but he did manage to escape. And boy, the player hated him so much. So when it came time for the big climactic, she spent the whole next session, like when the next time I recapping this whole session to everybody, like, okay, guys, here's what I did last time. It didn't affect what we're doing right now, but oh my God, I gotta tell you about this because I hate this guy so much. So when it came to the time for the big finale, of course, he was waiting in the like antechamber of the boss chamber to thwart them, and I had plenty of time to build this character as a like duelist with a bunch of, I think, like skill tricks from one of the 3.5 splat books.
One of the many.
A bunch of one of the like the combat style feats. They gave him a bunch of weird like abilities, just stuff that I built in like a player character, but I gave him a bunch of stuff that none of the other players had would have ever heard of or seen before. So like he faked his own death because one of his things was like if he takes more than 10 points of damage, he can roll a bluff check and like fall to the ground prone and appear for all intents and purposes like unconscious or dead. And so he waited till the rest was out of the room, and then he jumped up and like attacked the last person in the party again. It was great. It was fantastic.
Jerk move.
Sounds like a guy I'd like to hate.
Yeah.
Very hateable, eminently hateable. So nice. Yeah, I could talk about that campaign all night, but it's mostly just anecdotes unless I don't have any other useful bits, I don't think.
Well, one thing I want to mention, completely irrelevant to our current conversation, is Tom is here in spirit because he's the one who helped me do this. Like, if you notice that our stream actually looks semi-professional. He also set up Twitch alerts. So if anybody in chat that is not already following us would like to, we get to see a pretty little thing pop up and tell us that so-and-so is following us. If anybody wants to like cheer bits, I don't even know what those things are, but apparently it does something there too. So thank you, Tom. So a couple things I want to talk about the campaign. So first is magic items, because again, anybody who listens to our show has been around for a while knows that I am the anti-magic item DM. I almost never give them out. If I do, they're almost always a magic key and a magic dagger. Like those are standard issue, but beyond that, it's nothing. So I always like to ask people, so what is it specifically, if you can think of it, is about a game that you gave a lot of magic items that you think really made the game more fun? Was it the fact that they were not insignificant, but they weren't your standard, this does more damage? Was it because they were tailored to the players? Was it because they could use them to creatively problem solve? What was it you think that made it fun to do that?
Yeah, thanks. So these weren't from the book, right? But I tried not to just make them up whole cloth. Like I didn't just say, here's the dagger that does like a made up thing. I took stuff from the various materials. I think some of them were even like, I like worked out the gold prices of them with the magic item crafting system or whatever. But it was a little bit of the sort of customizing it for each character, and a little bit of, I really like to give players fun things to do. And this was a low level campaign. We started level 1. We made it to like 7 maybe, which is great. I love that range, 1 to 6, 1 to 7. But it means that sometimes people, like, we had like 2 full spellcasters. Like we had a sorcerer and a druid, and then a barbarian and a bard. So it was a great mix. We did lack a little healing, and then of course sometimes the spellcasters had a lot of things to do, and the bard and the barbarian had not a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
So I just like to give them all. I like these little items to give everybody just a fun thing to do. They were usually like a single standard action, like, okay, do a thing, and it was, you can cast healing or somebody. You can make. You can summon an invisible sword, like you can summon a swarm of bats temporarily. So it was just like random stuff from like actual D&D materials, but it gave everybody a feeling of like being very powerful and having lots of options, but not giving them any option that was actually overpowering, that actually like broke the challenge rating system and the armor class and things of monsters.
I got you. Okay. So Ryan, did you have any comments or thoughts there?
You said, on magic items or just a campaign in general?
Anything.
So you'd mentioned that you had about 4 solid players and then a couple floaters. Going from 1 to 7, how do you feel about floaters? Because my home group has, honest to God, like 10 players that float all the time. We typically, like, there's the same maybe 3 of us that play every time we play. And then we have, wives or friends that come and go. And we have so much of a big group that most of our parties are more like mercenary style, so that we can trade in everybody.
Yeah.
Do you, like, just personal opinion, do you find that that's easy to deal with? Do you find that's hard to deal with? Do you enjoy kind of the differences that brings, or is it too challenging sometimes as a DM to try to get all those personalities together?
Yeah, I've never had a real problem with like having floating players. I don't think I've ever had like as big a group as that with a lot of floating players as you seem to be dealing with.
Yeah,
but people
it's
run
a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But I'll say that, and people run like West Marches style games, right, where you do have a floating pool of players, and you just give them a big map and say, here's a bunch of stuff on this map, and there's a bunch of adventure seeds and things to do here. And if you're at this session, you can help decide what to do, and if you're not, then you'll have a fun things to do next week. I think that the biggest problem with having floating players is like, I have bad luck in my sessions. We often stop in the middle of things, right? We don't always get to a nice clean cutting point. Fairly common problem, I'm sure. But I basically just hand wave all of them. Like, okay, well, Annabelle and Brittany and Chris were here tonight. So you're all 3 here in the dungeon doing exciting things. And the next week it's, Chris and Denise and Eric. And like, okay, well, Chris and Denise and Eric, you're all here in the dungeon. And Denise and Eric, Chris is going to tell you what happened to all 3 of you who were here in the dungeon last week. And, we just hand wave it and say, well, you were all here. Just, you also had goblins to fight earlier, and you didn't quite help out with the trap or whatever. Just it's not worth trying to maintain verisimilitude for, well, the dungeon boat only had room for 4 people, you said, but how did all 8 of us get down here? Like, this is whatever.
Yeah, I know I've talked about this many times over the 9, almost 10 years this podcast has been going on, but one of the worst games I ever played in was Tony. It's where I met Brad. It's where I met Jared. So I'm very happy to be in that game. But it actually has given me a lot of fodder to talk about. But one of the things that he did that drove me insane was that he would always try to create these story reasons why players were absent or not when that happened. Like, he couldn't just hand wave it. He had to come up with these reasons. And it got to the point where sometimes those reasons became more important than the whole story. So like, 4 of us, for example, were there last week and this week. But the majority of the session was used to explain why that 5th person wasn't there. None of the other 4 of us cared because we were there both times. But it was like, no,
So
we
side story became the main story.
Right. It became more important. It became more like there was more face time at the table given to what was going on versus the main story. And that was one of the big things that just drove me insane. So, and I've always been that way, but I'm very much about hand wavy. You were there. You just didn't do anything. This wasn't your episode. You were in the background. Now Exactly. You're coming forward. Now it's your episode. So you get to be there. I know that it's not the most realistic version and it can break player immersion, which I'm all for player immersion. But I just think it's the reality of the game, the way most of us as adults play, and I'm making wild generalizations here, that, maybe we don't get to play for 3 weeks because of kids or life. And then maybe one person doesn't get to play for 4 weeks and the other 3 do, but you want to play because you missed. I just think it's just part of the game that you just say, you know what, everybody was always there. You just weren't important last week and now you are. And if you try to, unless maybe if someone did it really well, then maybe I would feel differently. But all the examples I have of it are piss poor.
Well, and think about ensemble cast TV shows, right? Geordie LaForge is always on the Enterprise. If he doesn't appear in an episode, it just means like he was busy doing chief engineer stuff. Like whatever Picard and Worf had important things to do on the planet, and Geordie's just chilling, working on the warp drive. Like they're all like it doesn't. They don't need to come up with reasons why the characters aren't always involved.
Right. Or it's just one line. Like when it does, it does make sense that the chief security officer would be involved in this, but Tasha's on this, station on sick leave this week, or whatever. But we don't need the whole entire episode to just switch to show Tasha going through like a normal day at like the doctor's office. Like she's getting her checkup, she's picking up her mail and her dry cleaning, and we come back and like the Enterprise is on fire because we missed the stuff that's important.
Although, hang on, actually, wait. I would watch that great episode of like a character doing really mundane things and then showing up halfway through to like the Enterprise on fire and then having to resolve all of it. That would be great. But
walks
probably
in the
not
door
for
with a
every
cup of coffee,
episode.
like, hey guys, what's up? What did I miss?
What I miss?
All right, well, yeah.
Somebody's running by.
I'll let you guys handle.
Literally on fire.
Got it under control.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about magic items. Talked a little bit about rotating players. Was there anything else about that campaign in particular that you felt was like, I want to make sure I do this again because it helped, or was there anything that happened that maybe you're like, we should avoid that?
Yeah, I got one of both of those. I'll start with the learning opportunity, which is I had a player who was interested in like engaging in a more in like a real relationship with an NPC, and they didn't want to like have really in depth and intimate discussions or anything. They just wanted to like engage with this NPC and befriend them and maybe have a romance. And I was just like, at the time I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And obviously
you didn't probably see the campaign going that long.
Well, yeah. Well, and it was just not something I was super interested in doing. And that's fair. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're uncomfortable. But I let them, I brought that character back and I let them engage in a relationship with the character. It didn't take up a lot of table time. It was not a big deal for me, but it meant a lot to the player. Like they remember that NPC really well. Like they're like, oh yeah. They really enjoyed being able to interact with them and have them come back in later sessions as like an important NPC because they had a relationship with them as opposed to just because, they were just in the same town as you. Like, oh no, she came back to help us because she's my friend and because, now we're dating or whatever. Like it was meant a lot more to the player and it wasn't like a big imposition for me. So, yeah, I'd say, again, it feels like, I'm sure this has been covered before, but
make a good point.
Yeah. Follow your players.
It's important to, exactly. It's important to pay attention and listen to your players. And sometimes they give you bits on what maybe they want to see happen in the campaign or the way, and they come up with a better idea than you have. But you also want to make sure that you're listening to them and giving them enjoyment out of it. That's what helped that player. I think it's great that you did that. A lot of GMs sometimes don't pay attention to those things, and that's what'll keep that player playing. It's what'll keep them coming back. And like you said, it made a lasting memory for them. So no, definitely important. Very cool.
And it means more when you kill that NPC later.
Oh,
if the game
I was not going to go there.
I could have held them for hostage, held them ransom. Yeah, it would have been a good follow-up to that.
Don't have to kill them.
Yeah, ransom.
Maim them.
Killing them outright, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
It's too easy also. The other thing was I did an epilogue for this campaign. I've tried to do that for everything that I've resolved since, even like a one-shot. I tried to do like just something like what was something the character wanted that I can give them in the long term, or like, okay, what's a mistake you made, like at a video game with like multiple paths, like, oh, well, you ticked off the groundskeeper, so now you're going to get a scene after the game's over about the groundskeeper never forgave you and spent their life trying to defame you in the town square or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't always have to be good news in the epilogue. It can just be like the world is alive and it did keep going after you stopped being in charge of your character.
That's something I've been doing for a while now, mostly like when I do one-shots, like a campaign game, or if I run a one-shot on the podcast, or even just like for funsies. I do the thing is like, it's like the end of the movie.
Freeze frame.
And
you want a finale, you want an ending.
Yeah, and it can be, 10 minutes later and everybody's eating shawarma. Or it can be this person now owns a car dealership in Toronto and, lives there with his family and he loves it. So it can be you get to choose what we see about your character in the future. And that tells me a lot about yourself and the character and what, it can be, it's freedom to kind of put a button on that character, and it can be depressing. I've had some that were like, I've lost my wife, I lost my kids, my job, I'm poor, I'm destined to live on the street. And others like, I'm now king of, this kingdom or whatever. But it's interesting to give players that freedom to do that. And so I'm definitely a fan of give them an epilogue at the end of the game to say, okay, everybody go around the table, freeze frame, movie style. Tell me something about the future of your character. I think it's great.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, anything else from you? I think we can move on if not.
Nope, I'm all for moving on. That's good.
Does the fact that we're getting ready to play the second improv game make you want to come up with a question before we move on?
Oh, God.
No, I better ripping off the Band-Aid at this point. Where my finger's been is well, we'll see tonight. It was less challenging last time we were here, but it is definitely the least of at least of the two favorites.
Nice.
Or least favorite of the two. There you go. Words. Yeah, I swear it's only been half a beer.
It seems to be the audience's favorite, but it's definitely not my favorite because I'm terrible at it. But first, a couple things I want to say. Welcome to Dirty Habanero. He's another longtime Detention regular. He came for most of them when we were doing these regularly, and hopefully when we get back to doing them regularly, we will. And then I also want to mention that we have a special sponsor for this episode of Where My Fingers Been, and that is Craig Campbell from Nerdburger Games. Craig is running a virtual convention this year, as many of us, myself included, will be doing. And he wanted us to just kind of basically give a shout out. When the show notes come out to this, I will put all the links in there, but the event schedule is out. There's tons and tons of games that are being ran. There's a lot of indie games, a lot of one-offs and little stuff. It's, from what I understand, it's free. You just sign up through Discord. So please go check out Nerdburger. You can follow him at Nerdburger Craig, and I think his website is nerdburgergames.com, but I also have links to the program and then how to get to the Discord so you can sign up. So thank you, Craig, for sponsoring this segment, which everyone loves, sort of, I guess.
Everyone that watching loves it. The people performing it is we never a favorite.
It is beloved by certain people, I think you can safely say.
Yes. I just think people like seeing me make an ass of myself. And this is a way to do that. So, Andrew, you once again are our guest, so you can go first, second, or third in the Where Have Your Fingers Been game.
Well, I don't remember anything about this other than the catchy jingle, so I'll take third, Michael.
Okay.
I'll go dead last.
So then we'll start. You can prompt Ryan. Ryan will prompt me, and then I will prompt you. And just basically, you give him a short scene of where his fingers are. Your fingers are in line at a movie. Your fingers are at the grocery store. And then we do the jingle, and then we have to do a little scene. Unless you're Scott, because then that jerk likes to bring in a third person because he can do that.
Scott's a consummate professional, and he can do what he wants. Or how many Scotts are there? Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, Scott Classic.
Oh, see. Okay, Ryan, your fingers are.
Well, he has to sing first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So Ryan.
All right. So, help me out here.
Where have my fingers been?
My fingers been.
I said, where have my fingers been?
Where have my fingers been?
Okay, you're gonna have to do that. Take two. There was no energy there. I didn't feel it. I need to believe that you don't know where your fingers are, or where they have been. All right. So make me feel it. And sing.
All right. I say, where have my fingers been? Oh, where have my fingers been?
Close enough.
Good enough.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Your fingers have been at the auto shop trying to get your hover car repaired.
Okay. Auto shop, hover car. All right. Hey, buddy, you almost done with that repair? Yeah, you got the 2034 Chevy
Flotatron.
Short flight. Flotatron. There you go. I like that. Flotatron. Yeah, that one's mine. The one over there, the green one. Yeah. So it turns out you got a bad hyper wire core, I think, is what the manual said. Wait, what manual? What do you mean? You don't know? Well, according to that, it's bad. So anyways, yeah, it's not going to happen unless you got 80,000 space bucks. Yeah, not doing that. Okay, well, cool. How about this? How about I'll keep it for parts, and you can have this cool floating surfboard. I think I saw that in a really, really old movie once. That's not going to fit my family of 5. Well, that's all I got. I'll take it. And that's where my fingers have been.
Yay!
Bravo.
All right.
The perfect prompt.
The song was weak, but you delivered on the actual scene. Right, I'll give you credit. That was great. All right, so now, Habanero says 5 out of 5.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much, Habanero, because I feel like that is my worst of the two. You didn't miss anything when I did the 10 things. That was terribly slow. So Awesome. Thank you so much.
Actually, I'm almost sorry now. For 10 things, I'll give you 10 out of 10 because you got there. But it took you like an hour.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair.
All right. So
look at that. I'm aces tonight.
Very good. All right, give me my prompt.
Oh gosh.
Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
All right, Michael, your fingers have been in digging ditches in a graveyard all day, and the owner said you have to dig one more before you're allowed to leave.
I feel like I've been digging ditches literally all day in a graveyard for some reason. I don't know why I'm digging ditches and not graves. Perhaps there's a storm coming and these are like moats. And somehow the straining of digging has caused my voice to change and I sound sort of like weird somehow. Like Antonio Banderas was like drunk on helium. I said one more before you go. Off with your head! And that's where my fingers have been. Because I don't like endings. Okay.
That one got away at the end. I loved it. 5 out of 5.
5 out of 4. Okay. Andrew, you...
Where?
Oh, no.
My fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
Your fingers have been trying to convince each other to play a different game, not realizing that each finger is saying the same game, but they're just explaining different components of it.
So yeah, I was thinking we'd play like strategy game, something with a real great history, a lot of royal background. But I was thinking we play sort of a strategic game, a lot of squares, a lot of movement. No, listen, I want a strategy game with a lot of nobility behind it. I want to make machinations. I want to sacrifice pawns for my noble plots. Now, I want to have castles and knights. I want to have a real tactical strategy game. No. I think what we should play is more of a game where you've got religion involved and the state. I really think we should play a game where anyone can become the queen of the land, or anyone can become anything if they just reach the right position. Well, that sounds garbage, and your game sounds like garbage. I guess we'll just play checkers, and that's where my finger's been.
Nice. Very good. Excellent. So now let's move on to mostly the last section. We do a Q&A at the end if anyone in chat wants to ask some questions. But before we do that, we go what we call Cryptozoology. And that's where we pick out a monster. It doesn't always have to be from D&D, but a lot of times it is. And we are going to talk about said monster, talk about maybe ways we've used this monster in the past, and potentially brainstorm some ways that we could use this monster in the future. And Andrew, once again, you are the guest co-host. What monster did you want to talk about?
Well, today we're going to be talking about the ogre.
Ogres. They're like onions.
Indeed, this monster is the most like an onion of any of the monsters. And don't come at me with that multi-layer mimic. No, the ogre is the most like an onion of all monsters.
So in 5th edition, the ogre can be found on page 237. It is a large, giant, chaotic evil in nature. It is a challenge rating 2, which feels low. It's got 59 hit points, great club attack, or a javelin attack.
It's really dumb.
It is, in fact, really, really dumb. So, Andrew, we'll start. So, what is it about ogres that you like so much?
I like ogres because they are a large monster. So it's always great for set pieces, really intimidating to see one pop up. And they cannot be, PCs don't feel like they can just cow this thing. You can't like bully an ogre because it is so big and strong, even if it's not very intelligent. But they're, as you said, they're pretty low level. Like they're not actually like that huge a threat. They're not giants. They're not trolls. Like they don't have regeneration. There's not a lot going on behind the doors there. So it feels like a much bigger, more impressive encounter than it really is. So you can really start getting in interesting, dramatic, epic sort of things going at a much lower level. And then later, when players are a higher level and a regular ogre isn't a threat, you can start stacking on class levels or templates, or you can just throw out like a bunch of ogres. Now it's like, well, here's 10 ogres, which is like 50 feet of ogre. So enjoy. Oh wait,
how many cubits is that?
Of ogre. Yeah, how many cubits is that? It's like 100 feet of ogre meat. And again, it feels much more intimidating than it really is. So that's why I like ogres. They're easy to they're versatile. They're extremely versatile.
All right. So Ryan, have you had any memorable encounters, either as a GM or a player, with ogres?
Yeah, and I'm glad he said versatile, because I mentioned this before we started going live, but my favorite ogre is the Storm King's Thunder 5th edition book. The ogres in there at a certain city in the game early on in this, my favorite, the ogres wear backpacks, and these backpacks are not your typical backpacks. They are catapults, and they are made to catapult live goblins over the wall of this city. And it's hilarious because the goblins do damage, and they have a chance to live at the end of the landing. So they can then just get up and, well, if they're not completely broken, get up and start attacking. So it's honest to God, like the funniest thing ever. I mean, it's like launching a live cow, over the wall. Funny thing with a catapult. But this is a goblin, so it's really cool to see an ogre because he is really big and strong. They can do kind of unusual things, and this iteration of the ogre I found is one of the funniest in game. And there's nothing like launching goblins over a wall or a couple hundred feet away in the battlefield. And then having to once you these flying screaming missiles essentially come flying at you, and then figure out that it's a goblin on the back end that you have to fight too. So no, I do think that they're versatile. That's my favorite iteration of them. I would like to see a smart ogre. The different things you could do with that. Smart and big. That early on, challenge rating a 2 could definitely pose some threats to use it in a different way. Like you were saying, stack on some class skills or a template or something on top of it. Just make it like it's in intelligence rating. It's 5, -3. That's pretty bad. I mean, if 8 is if 8 is average, or I guess bare minimum. I mean, good God, what if this thing was a 12 intelligence? And it,
what if it was a Homer Simpson level intelligence?
Well, nothing saying you can't just bump its intelligence. I mean, if you bump it, to genius tactical level, you might want to count it as a higher challenge and give more XP for it. But you bump this thing up to a 12 or 13, it's not going to have all the mechanical effect. You're not going to worry about it changing its armor class or its hit points or its attack bonuses or damage or anything. It's just like, well, it's not going to fall for your tricks you thought it was going to fall for. It's not going to buy that you're a caravan of goblins bringing in, a catapult. It's not going to buy that you're a herd of sheep. If you say "ba" and crouch down, exactly. This is
I mean, it essentially becomes a lieutenant or or a captain. Nothing like having a huge, big ogre as the leader of your tiny army or your squad, instead of just a hulking meat shield for things like that.
Give it a set of armor, custom large ogre armor. Now it's a wall.
Yeah,
a good way to throw early players for a loop.
I'm kind of a fan of ogres as well. They fit a nice niche for me where, again, I like to run low level games. I particularly like to run like 0 level or like dirt farmers who go off to save the world. And an ogre is a big enough of a challenge for 2 or 3, 4 first level characters, because if it hits one of them solidly, it can just kill them. At first level, there's a good chance that you're going to at least go to 0, if not outright kill you. So they represent a danger. It represents something that you're going to have to work together. So it can be like a team building type of thing where if we don't work together, we can't win. It lets some, role playing come out, because there's always going to be one person who wants to try to trick at the ogre rather than fight it. So I think they're a good low level encounter. But trying to think of ways to use ogres differently than just a sack of hit points you got to hit till they die. I like the idea of an intelligent ogre, but not super intelligent, just intelligent enough to know that, if I show up and act like, oh, I'm going to kill you, that the farmers will probably give me stuff, hoping that I won't kill them. So he just goes around like grifting people, it's like he gets a free cow, he gets some food, maybe he gets some gold by travelers on the road. But then if he goes against someone who's really tough, he's like runs away or becomes a coward. It's like, I'm sorry, I just wanted some free gold. Like the encounter that would be where you think, oh, we're going to have to trick this ogre. And the ogre's like in on it. Like, yeah, you need to trick me. Like, you need to like give me something not super valuable, but like maybe 4 chickens. I'd be fine with 4 chickens. But like, it's like a meta conversation about how you trick this ogre and what would be enough. I think that could be a lot of fun to have at the table.
I think you made a really good point. I was talking about, and Ryan, we talked about ogres being versatile from a game master perspective. Right, you can add sort of things to them. It also gives players a lot of versatility. As you said, it's a low level monster, even if it is a life-threatening to low-level characters. It gives them a lot of options. Do you want to go straight combat? It's not very clever. You could try to trick it. It's big. You could try to outmaneuver it. Like, it gives you a lot of options. It's got, it's not super tough. You could probably cast some wild spells on it that would work. Like, it's got a fairly good chance of failing most of those saving throws. Mm-hmm. So it's versatile for players too, especially if you're just giving vanilla ogre.
Yeah, I mean, in the book it mentions greedy collector, so it also gives something as a GM, you could easily give it something that it's hiding or that it's possessed as a bonus to the players. It could be something funny. It could be another character in a cage, or it could be a pack of, hey, you just became a cow farmer because this thing was hoarding cows for meat. And what are you going to do with all these cows you found?
Catapult.
So side business. Here's my here's my butcher shop, that I have to run now.
Cattle drive.
It could be
You gotta get
gold,
these
or it could,
cows.
yeah. I mean, it could be something completely pointless. Like maybe he's got something with, he's got a love of moss for a bed or something like that. I don't know, just crazy stuff.
I like the idea of maybe giving an ogre a cursed item, like a helmet of idiocy, but they're already so dumb it doesn't have any effect. So when the players, they don't realize that it's cursed because they're like, well, the ogre was wearing it and he seemed fine. But then when they put it on, it makes them as smart as an ogre or as dumb as an ogre. Maybe it's like an ogre helmet, and when you put it on, it makes you as smart as an ogre. But because it was already an ogre, it didn't have any
It didn't
effect.
affect it.
Yeah, it didn't have any effect.
And it's too stupid to take it off.
The helm of ogre's intellect.
So it looks like this, wicked BA helmet with like these big bat wings, very intimidating, cool,
It
definitely
shows up as
magical,
magic.
definitely magic. But you can't tell what it is because there's no the ogre's not faster. It's really already strong, so we can't tell if it's stronger. It's already dumb, so we can't tell if it's dumber, but it's like a cursed item. That could be fun. I had the idea of what if, like a role play scene where there's like the ogre who's like the runt of the litter and they get picked on. And so they want to set up where like they fight you, but you let them win so they can prove that they're tough enough to play with the big boy ogres.
Or if you double cross them and you really start turning the tables on them, like, oh, now it's big siblings are going to show up, and now you've got some ogres that are bigger and tougher. Maybe they've got class levels, maybe they've got templates, maybe they're just more ogres, and it's too big of a challenge for you.
Yeah, it's the classic. I can say that to my brother, but you can't say that to my brother. So you agree to let this ogre beat you up, but then you turn the tables and try to embarrass them, and then like the whole family of ogres, like, hey, that's our little brother, and now you have a fight when you set it up like it's going to be a role play encounter, and then it becomes a fighting encounter rather than it's a fighting encounter that becomes a role play encounter.
I like it.
I love those.
Such a versatility. Name of the game for ogres: versatility.
Yep. All right. So we'll just throw out the chat if anyone in chat who's had any particular interesting encounters with ogres or any ideas for interesting encounters with ogres, please let us know. But otherwise, we're going to move into the last part of the show, and that's our audience Q&A. So again, there's 4 or 5 of you hanging out with us tonight. Do you have any questions for any of us or for all of us? It doesn't have to be D&D or RPG related, though that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, and I know there's a little bit of a delay, so while we're waiting for chat to maybe catch up. So Andrew, one more time, where can people find you on the internet?
Great. I'm at that1GM, spell it all out, THATONEGM, on Twitter. You can find me at that1gm.itch.io. That's where all my games are. They're almost all free. The 2 that aren't free have free copies available if you don't have the money, or if you're just like, I'm not going to spend money on this unless I know it's good. I retweet a lot of stuff. Some of it's role-playing related, some of it's not. So if you really are just focused on role-playing, go to my itch page, look at all the garbage I've got there. It's fun, it's free, it's weird. You'll like it, maybe.
Nice. And if you've not heard our Trial of Wushu episode, I cannot recommend it highly enough. I will say the first half hour or so of the first episode is slow because the players, we were kind of overwhelmed by the just complete openness. We could literally be anything that we wanted. But once we settled on the premise, that game takes off, and it is still one of my favorite role-playing experiences I've ever had. It was amazing. But that first half hour can be a little rough to get into.
Fast forward until you start hearing talking about trench coats or Tyrannosaurus Rexes or any celebrity names. Once you hit celebrity names, like, you're in it. Go back 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and you're right in it.
Yep. All right. So Ryan, again, let everybody know where they can find you on the internet if they want to hang out with you or get a hold of you or something like that.
I'm a busy man, and but I am at Teleporta on Twitter, also on Instagram, and I try to help out here as much as RPG Academy as I can. always been a part of Academanics the last couple of years. I've got a few articles around. Try to do stuff like this for Detention. There will be a review of the Theros coming out that I'm going to write something up for. So if you're looking for something like that, I try to do those things. And I will say, New York Tater did ask a question in chat that we should probably cover.
Yeah. So New York Tater asked, what do you think the future of in-person play will look like for places that rent space or bars that promote game playing? Andrew, I'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. I think once those places are open for in-person business and they are allowing people back in, I think they're still going to have a lot of social distancing rules, but something we've seen at elementary schools and places that are preparing to have people back in person is like plexiglass barriers or like vinyl sheeting. And you've seen this at grocery stores and gas stations and things too, where people where there is face-to-face interaction. You can't really avoid it. I think that would be an option for some instances. I think it'd be hard to play board games, the plexiglass barrier. But I think there are some options that places might go up. The concern, of course, is that they just canceled. They said, listen, it's not worth it. You can't do it here. So we're just going to focus on whatever our prime thing is, right? Coffee or internet access or alcohol, whatever the other space is for. So.
What about you, Ryan? What do you think about that?
So as a person that goes out and does games, because the RPG Academy before this hosted a monthly game night at one of our local friendly gaming stores, and I was one of those guys that regularly attended with Tom. I think it's going to be rough. It's going to be from a store owner point of view, I don't think that a lot of them are going to want to do it and jump into it right away because of liability, I guess. And that's what a lot of businesses are worried about. From a player point of view, I love in-person gaming, and it really is going to come down to each individual's feelings, and are they comfortable? Are they not? Is it what level of kind of I don't want to use the word paranoia, but just kind of worry that would come with that. So even though and I think it's going to take some time to get these spaces available and up and running, and just people comfortable with that idea again. I think a lot of gaming is going to take place in person in people's homes and friends groups, and say, I'm uncomfortable. Everyone's feeling well. Let's give this a shot and see how it goes. But I do think it's going to take a while for that to calm down. I'd much rather game in person and sit around and actually have live interaction with people. This is great. Don't get me wrong. It's what we're, dealing with now,
Mm-hmm.
but there's nothing will ever take the place of an in-person live game, where you can argue and laugh and tell a joke and be silly, and have the multitude of distractions. I think it'll really take a lot. And I hope we get back to that sooner than later, once everything is kind of figured out. But it ultimately is going to come down, I think, to individuals' level of comfort.
Yeah, it is such a difficult thing. I don't know, again, and for whatever reason, it has somewhat become a political issue on how you feel about the various protections that we can do and can take. And that's part of the problem, is that you can do everything right, but if someone else in your group isn't, then they can put you at risk. Like, I have 2 kids and I have a wife. I don't want to get sick because I don't want them to get sick. So like I might be able to go hang out with my friends and play an in-person game thinking, well, all my friends have told me they've all been, basically quarantining. They all feel safe. So if we get together, we should be okay. But if I take something back home to my kids, like I would never forgive myself. As much as I love role-playing games, if one of my kids gets this and dies because I could not hang out with my friends, I'm never getting over that. So I'm not going to do that.
And that's a fair point, Michael. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
So same condition that you're in, wife, 2 sons. But my wife is a nurse, and she's already been exposed and quarantined because of this. So, and it becomes a personal thing where it's like, well, if she was exposed and we didn't know about it for a couple of days, so chances are I was exposed. So now I feel like personally my chances of contracting it and being affected by it are a little less than most people, because once she's been a nurse for 11 years. And I was a fireman, so if I haven't been exposed to something yet, like I kind of feel like, well, I'm not going to say I'm invincible, but
right.
It feels like you're not going to get the worst end of things.
Right. But
so that
the concern there though is
up and skews the thing.
I just saw a post that somebody has been diagnosed with it for the third time. So even if you get it, you don't become immune to it. You can get it again.
Yeah.
So even if you didn't get it the first time, so in realism, I think the short answer is probably a lot of those places are going to go out of business unless they can shift, like Andrew was saying, like maybe their prime business is food or alcohol, and even those businesses are still struggling. But until we get an actual vaccine, I don't know that we're going to go back. And I'm still hopeful that we will get that we will get there within a year, that we will have a viable vaccine or some other way to mitigate, like, a more resistant sort of thing. Like we get things figured out. But, I'm fortunate that I don't have to work. My wife works from home. We don't have to go out if we don't want to. I go to the store about once a week and I wear my mask and I wear gloves and I wipe down everything with Clorox wipes. And, I think we're as cautious as we probably can be without not having any outside contact. And I still get worried, so I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I wanted to have a catacon this year. I wanted to have a faculty retreat. I'm very upset about this, but I also am not so upset that I'm going to do something stupid and put myself or my family at risk over it.
Well, I think you mentioned earlier, we talked about online conventions. Those are becoming more, common, more frequent in the last few years. Obviously, a lot of them are going to be online now. I think that's going to open the door for a lot more online experiences, online opportunities. I mean, if you're a comic book store or a game store, pay one of your people to do a 4-hour game session every week online. There's a lot of free apps out there that'll do it. You can do Zoom for like 40 minutes. You can, even without paying any money, you could do a whole bunch of Microsoft and Google or whatever, Facebook. The tools are out there for free. There are better tools if you're willing to pay any money into it. There are other more specific tools that aren't expensive that are still free. Tabletop Simulator and Roll20 and all these websites. I think that maybe we'll see a lot more of those coming up for places like comic book stores and game stores. I don't know if libraries and bars and things are going to get into that, but
I think that's the opportunity that I agree with Ryan. I think getting together around a table is better than virtual, but I think virtual is pretty darn good. Like I enjoy playing virtually. So I think the opportunity is, how do we make virtual feel more like real? So like,
as someone who did a online campaign once a week basically for 3.5 years, like, yeah, we had in jokes, we had references, like it was goofy. I don't feel like we're missing anything I don't feel like I was missing anything that I wouldn't have gotten around the table other than a bag of Doritos in the center that I could have, gotten at any point. Like I had to get up and go get stuff out of the kitchen if I wanted something. But like, I think it takes more time to get there virtually than it does in a real space. There are still limitations. So I think you can get, short of like everybody reaching for the bag of Doritos at the same time, I think you can get mostly the same experience once you get comfortable.
I think it's just I'm a extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert. I don't know how it works, but I'm one of those because I have tendencies of both. But I do get an energy. Like when I sit around a table with people, I feel more energized that the people around me, I can read them better to make sure that, like the game is going in the right way. And there's something about, being 20 minutes into a game going, you know what, I'm not feeling this. Just reaching over and grabbing something, throwing it on the table and be like, oh, let's play this instead. And so those are things that you can't really do. But I think the things that are good about it are maybe more than make up for those opportunities. Like, again, being able to play Marvel Legendary and not having to sort all my cards when I'm done and immediately play again, that's pretty darn cool. I really like that a lot. So I don't know. I feel like we kind of went not on a down note, but I mean, this is serious stuff. People are dying. People are getting sick. And even people who get better, again, the articles I'm reading, there's people who get over it who have everlasting damage to their body. So it's not like they're just over it and they're la la, you know. So it's serious. So I want people, please take this serious. Wear masks. Take care of yourself. It's literally the least that you can do. But we're going to end things there. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight in chat. I really appreciate it. We should be back in a couple weeks. I'll be here for sure. Ryan will probably be here, and we'll hopefully have another third guest that will do at least half as good of a job as Andrew did here tonight. And join
I got big shoes to fill next time around.
Yeah, but join our Discord, join our TTS channel, and get on some gaming with me because I'm on there all the time playing Marvel Legendary and other things, and it's a lot of fun. But one last time around the table, Andrew, say goodbye to everybody, then Ryan, and then I'll wave us out.
Goodbye to everybody.
Ryan.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Glad to see you.
Yep, and me. See you guys. Bye-bye.